Hello students, welcome to Journal 150. We are in week 7 and we are considering this week political influence in media. As we work through some of the course content this week, please keep in mind that we're reading chapters 3 in the course content, in the course text, as well as watching 3 videos about shaping culture and shaping public opinion. We are completing media and culture activity number 4 as well as reflection number 7. Also keep working on your critical assignment, your oral history project that is due next week. Media and Culture assignment number 4 asks you to pick 2 of the media advocacy organizations in Exhibit 3.4 in the course text. Really what Exhibit 3.4 is just a list of media advocacy groups. Pick 2 of them from that list and that you find interesting and such. Explore their websites, look at what their mission is and what some of their current advocacy projects are. When you've done that, you'll answer these 3 questions here. Pretty much you'll look at what aspects of media regulation is discussed in Chapter 3 that these groups are focusing on and why. You'll discuss your chosen groups with your classmate, and then you'll also, classmates in general, through your replies, and then you will examine the role that these groups like, what role do groups like this play in the media landscape? So you'll be looking at what organizations you've chosen and what role they play in the overall media landscape and looking at political influence in media particularly. Make sure you do describe each organization as well and make sure that your post is no less than 400 words. Do not forget you have to, this is not a discussion board, I'm sorry. Otherwise I was going to say you would have to reply. My apologies. In Reflection 7, you have to reply to at least 2 students. So as you work through Reflection 7, you'll spend some time looking at the Prometheus Radio Project. You'll look at this website and explore what an organization like this exists and what they offer in terms of opposition to the FCC and media corporations. Additionally, you'll look at what actions do they recommend and why, and you'll consider the idea of pirate radio that is listed in Chapter 3. There's a lot of information on that in there, and consider what those are and if you would be inclined to listen to them and such. This post is 200 words and you are required to reply to at least 3 other students, so please make sure to do so there. I wanted to spend some time going over some of the stuff that's in the course content this week and looking at political influence and media. It's important to know that the first freedom and public interest comes from the idea of let me give a background of the First Amendment and what we are founded on within our nation. It's important to know that the First Amendment begins with telling us that Congress shall make no law. This first freedom suggests that the government should take a hands-off approach towards the media. Particularly the framers of the Constitution knew too well how the European governments had persecuted authors, printers, and publishers throughout Europe. Governments had limited the right of printers through tactics such as requiring licensings and heavy taxation, and such in the U.S. when it was established wanted to make sure that they did not put this on the people. It's important to know that the relationship between the government and media in a U.S. society is complex. It involves balancing the protection of free expression by limiting government intervention with the protection of public interest by using government intervention. So in many ways, these competing demands are at the heart of every debate regarding government regulation of the media. So it's important to know that as we look through this, we need to be well aware of what the chapter tells us about intellectual property law, the Creative Commons license, as well as looking at this complex relationship that they have. So when you look at intellectual property law, it's important to keep in mind that that what you create is, yes, your own, but it's important to see how it's transpires through what the First Amendment and the copyright clauses in the Constitution tell us. So, copyright clauses from the Constitution tell us that to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right of their respective writings and discoveries. So it's very, very important that as you keep that in mind, that the fair use is considerably influential in what we create of our creative works, as well as looking at how that's influential to us. So while the government is concerned with protecting the rights of owners of media property through copyright law, it has also been concerned with avoiding monopolies within ownership of that property. So one example is the concern was that the FCC's regulation of ownership of television programming could take place. So the Creative Commons is created as a copyright alternative. Creators who use a Creative Commons copyright license can choose different licensing options, placing on a varied degree of restrictions of their work. There are 4 types of restrictions you can place on your work. The attribution by is where you let others copy, distribute, display, and perform your copyrighted work and derivative works based upon it, but only if they give you credit by the way of a formal request. Share alike SA is where you allow others to distribute and derivative work only under license identical to the license that governs your work. The non-commercial is where you let others distribute, display, and perform your work and a derivative of your work based upon it, but for non-commercial purposes only, so such as educational ventures, things like that. The no derivative works lets others copy, distribute, display, and perform verbatim copies of your work, not derivative works based upon it. So what is typically plays a part today is the Creative Commons license. In recent years, critics seeking to enrich the public domain have developed alternative approaches to copywriting. The Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that offers free legal tools to protect the creative work while maximizing the amount of material that is available for free and legal sharing using repurposing and remixing. Unlike a traditional copyright, Creative Commons license allows creators to give user-specific rights to use their work while giving the creators the option of having some rights reserved. So typically today someone will choose, if they choose not to use a standard intellectual property right or copyright, if they want to use a Creative Commons right, either allowing their work to be used as attribution, share alike, non-commercial, or no derivatives. There's a figure of this in the chapter if you want to expand that a little further. Specifically, it's important to know that when we think about regulating ownership and control, particularly when it comes to technology, because this has been in the forefront lately, it's important to see that over the last 20 years, the growth of digital media has seen by some observers as revolutionary in terms of change of media development. Digital information, those zeros and ones that make up binary code, is now the common underlying basis for storing audio, video, print media, and in many different forms, including music or film, as well as a GIF or a JPEG, photographs or graphics. This common digital foundation is what enables your computers, television, cell phones, smart devices to access text, images, videos, and sound to talk with one another. The impact of this digitization was enhanced by other technological developments that increased the amount of data that could be easily stored and transmitted. Flash drives enable you to carry hundreds of songs, and the iPod Shuffle and such from there. So with that, it's important to know that there has been a significant amount of work in looking at digitization and how it led to convergence of mass media formats and the lines between cable and television and telephone and computers that have become less and less identifiable. So until now, it's important to know that through the 1996 Telecommunication Acts, there's lowered limits on the amount of the number of media outlets a single company can own, as well as making sure that we are not creating media that's detrimental to the free flow of ideas. So this idea of a free press is showing us that we should have a free flow of ideas and allowing anyone to create and disseminate information through any means they see fit, not necessarily information coming down through 3 or 4 set media channels or media groups. Looking at that, it's important to see the ideas of the internet and net neutrality and what has come to be with that. It's important to know that net neutrality is the internet's guiding principle. When we think about how media is influential in society, it's important to know that net neutrality, it preserves our right to communicate freely online. Really, it means an internet that enables and protects free speech. It means that ISPs should provide us with an open network and shouldn't block or discriminate any application or content that ride over those networks. Just as your phone shouldn't decide who you call and what you say, your ISP should not interfere with the content you view or post online. Without net neutrality, cable and phone companies could carve the internet into fast, slow lanes. An ISP could slow down its competitors' content or block political opinions it disagreed with. ISPs could charge extra fees to view content that companies create that could afford, or those that could afford to pay it, could receive preferential treatment, relegating everyone else to a slower tier of service. This would destroy the idea of an open internet. So with that, it's important to know that in 1998, faced with the idea of convergence in the internet, cable, television, and telephone, the FCC sought public comment to the question of whether the internet service via cable should be considered a cable service or a telecommunication service or an information service. Each legal designation brought with it different types of regulation. So really, what's happened here is that we've spent a significant amount of time in looking at what net neutrality means and what that means in terms of disseminating information. And essentially, it is one of the most controversial media policy issues today, but its goal is to preserve open access to the internet and a level playing field for all websites. So if you decided to go out there and create a website yourself and have something that you want to promote on that website, you can do that free and openly without necessarily meeting much resistance or it getting blocked based off of what other internet service providers may have. So it's very, very, very important to see how that works and what that leads to be. It's something that I wanted to point out because one of the big things of this chapter is looking at how media influence is succumbs to governmental influence and political pressures and such. And so with that, it's important to keep that in mind. As we work through week 7, it's important to complete chapter 3, watch the videos posted in the lecture, as well as completing media and culture activity number 4 and reflection discussion board number 7. If you have any questions, let me know. I look forward to interacting with you this week. God bless.